We start with Hector Albertorio. He is the head of the Faith and Opportunities Initiative at La Fortaleza. So he works for the governor. Hector, thank you for joining us. Initially, we were told that the man who's the chief of staff would be doing the interview, but then he backed out. I requested an interview with the Secretary of Education and got no response there. So you were the person we were told has been appointed to do the talking. Do you know why it's you and not the chief of staff?
Yes, because I'm the one who directly works with nonprofit organizations and churches.
Okay. All right. So you can explain their decision to use the nonprofits to disseminate the food. Okay. All right. All right. So, but I have some questions that you may not be able to answer, but let's start.
Perfect.
Why is the government using nonprofits to distribute the food instead of doing it themselves?
Because we have, since the beginning, we started, as you know, we started on March 15th, complete lockdown, of course, with different exceptions for supermarkets and things like that. However, the main focus was to preserve and save lives, the health of our people. And when we analyze the way food distribution is being handled in the nation, there are different types of models. They use, some school districts use their very own schools and the school system to do it. And there are other models that they use nonprofit organizations and churches. Therefore, what we did was, since we have nonprofit organizations that are scattered across the island, and they actually do they provide the service to communities in need, and to those, especially to those kids in need and their families, we actually thought that it would be a better way to redirect resources and food in order to get to the communities faster and more efficient.
So you are providing the materials to do the cooking to the nonprofits such as the Salvation Army and others. I want to get to which nonprofits you're using. I would like names, but before that, let me ask you this. I still don't understand why, because states have figured out a way to do it. Atlanta uses buses, Los Angeles uses drive-throughs, so does New York City, and many other states around the country. Why can't Puerto Rico figure out a way to do it?
Because we also saw that school districts in Kansas, in Memphis, in Houston, in some parts of Chicago, they had actually to close down the food distribution because many of their employees were infected by COVID. Therefore, in order to prevent that, and knowing that the nonprofit organizations are actually well equipped, most of them are well equipped, and they actually know how to deal in disasters and emergencies, we thought that working through the nonprofit organizations would be better and would be safer.
Okay, so you have the resident commissioner, Jennifer Gonzalez, that says this is a bad idea. You have the Financial Oversight and Management Board, which says you must do it. You have the Association of Mayors on the island, who have released a statement saying the government must do it. And you have federal dollars, which have been allocated for the government to do it. Sir, I understand worrying about the safety of others. That's what the pandemic is about, is worrying about not only our safety, but the safety of others. Isn't there a way to socially distance so that you are looking out for the safety of those, but you are guaranteeing that food will be delivered and served?
Right now, the nonprofit organizations are guaranteeing that. So if we, from the kickoff, yes, there might be differences of opinions on how to achieve a common goal. The common goal is to provide food to children, the communities, their families, but there are different ways. And yes, and probably Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez says that this is a bad idea. And of course, that's her opinion, and we totally respect that opinion. But that is not the only way to do it. We actually analyzed different models in the states, and we thought that this model would be appropriate in this time and age. So this is something that is not written in stone. Right now, what we think the way we are providing this service is inaccurate, and we will be receiving information from those organizations, from more than 95 organizations that are actually doing the work in the communities. As soon as we analyze every single distribution that they have made in the information that they will be providing Puerto Rico, VOAD, and the Department of Education, then we can see where we move from there. Right now, you asked me different
Hector,
organizations. Yes.
before we get to the organizations, you didn't answer the question. Let me just go back, if I may. Why can't the government figure out a way to protect the workers, keep them socially distant and safe, but do the job that you guys have to do, feed children?
We are doing it through nonprofits, and that is the way. And this is the way we are social distancing the employees, and this is the way we are taking care of the people. We believe that through nonprofit organizations, we are achieving exactly what you're asking.
Well, there's a difference, but again, I just want to get an answer to the question, and then we can move on to the organizations. Why can't you figure out a way to have the employees work safely but provide the food? I know you've chosen to use the nonprofits, but correct. Why can't you figure out a way to not use the nonprofits? Using nonprofits is like asking your friend to do you a favor. If the friend does it, that's wonderful, but they're not obligated to do you a favor. So the nonprofits are not obligated to serve students. You're asking them to, and they're saying they will. So why can't you, just wrapping up this question, why can't you socially distance the workers and have them do it?
Like I told you before, because this is the way we thought it would be better. We thought by using, and we still think that by using nonprofits, we can achieve the goal. And nonprofits, they constantly do the service every single time, every single day, every single weekend. Most of those organizations are the ones who take care of those children, those that we are talking about in those numbers. Children that actually have their only food is the one that is provided by the school. Many of those children, they are being attended by those organizations. So what are we doing? They already know the children. They already know the community is in need. What are we doing? We are providing resources for those organizations. We are adding more organizations. We are adding community leaders. We are adding officials from emergency management from the municipalities in order to connect with the communities and with the mayors.
The municipalities are asking you to open the schools.
The municipalities are asking us to open the schools, and they are, and recently Chief of Staff Antonio Pavon spoke to Carlos Molina, President of the Federation of Mayors, and yes, he says, we are eager to work together with the nonprofit organizations, despite that he sustains his point that he wants the schools to open, or at least to provide food. He says he's actually, his position has not changed. However, he is eager to work with the organizations like we told them yesterday that we were going to do.
Okay, I don't get that. Going back to the question, and I say this with all due respect, I don't want to be a jerk here. You're hearing from the mayors, the government, the resident commissioner, that it's not a good idea. You're hearing from members of Congress that it's not a good idea. But so why, you said earlier that this is our position right now.
Correct.
Why won't you rethink the position? The schools are, and this is not my opinion, this is what the critics will say. The schools are the best place to do it. They know the families, they know the kids, the families know where the schools are, you know where everything is there, you've already got the supplies, you can cook it. So you can make people stand 6 feet apart, you can cook in a kitchen, and you can fulfill the obligation that you have to the students. So again, just one more time, why not rethink the idea, but do it safely?
Correct. Like I told you before, we have seen that, and we have analyzed other models. You have to remember, this is not the only way to do things. I might disagree with the resident commissioner's opinion and with the mayor's opinion. That is not the only way. Yes, to their knowledge, it's the best way. That's their opinion. The government actually states that right now we believe that the best option is to do it through nonprofit organizations. As soon as we have the information, all the data that has been gathered in the past few weeks, that Puerto Rico VOAD will provide the Department of Education as a request from the Department of Education to provide information on where was the food distributed, how many families were impacted. Once we have that information, which will be handed in this week, then we will move to probably some other phases. We will probably analyze or take into consideration other options. But right now, we believe that nonprofit organizations are doing the correct job.
When did the lockdown start in Puerto Rico?
March 15th.
March 15th. Let me look at my phone here. So March 15th means that it has been a month and a week and a half, right? So let's call it 5.5 weeks. What's taken you 5.5 weeks to get the data?
Because we didn't start on the first day. This started.
When did you start?
This started, I believe it was like 2 weeks. It was at the beginning of April, the first phase, which was for the food bank, provide 100, I believe it was over 100,000 pounds of food to the food bank and to Salvation Army. The second phase, we added Puerto Rico VOAD, which heads more than 80 organizations across the island, which provide services, which provide food. And now we are adding a third phase. When the Department of Education actually did, they connected with Puerto Rico VOAD, and that's where they actually set up this request, because the federal government, which has authorized the Department of Education to do this initiative this way with nonprofit organizations, they provided, they requested for information from the organizations that have impacted communities. So right now we are, and it is bi-weekly information that has to be handed in. So we started 2 weeks ago with PR VOAD, and now this week we should have that information in the Department of Education.
So what's your third phase?
Third phase is right now we are adding community leaders. We are adding the Office of Emergency Management from the municipalities, and we are centralizing everything in Prem B. Why? Because Prem B already knows how to mass distribute food through mass care organizations and through Puerto Rico VOAD. So,
but Mr. Hector,
yes.
Why are you creating something when you already have something set up with the schools?
Oh, it's not created. It's not created. This is a protocol that has been standing for the earthquakes, for Maria, and for every emergency. PR VOAD has existed for a couple of years now, for many years now, and those organizations, they already have protocols in mass care and mass food distribution that is already in place. We are not creating something new. We are just establishing protocols that already have been established in different states and different school districts. This is not nothing. There's nothing new about this.
But Hector, the government's ability to feed mass people during the earthquakes or after the hurricane was never done in a way that most people thought was done well. And that's not a criticism of the government. That's just a reflection, and I know you acknowledge that. So,
and I totally agree with you. And that is why we're using nonprofit organizations. This is not the government. Government heads the logistics. The distribution process is through mass care and through nonprofit organizations.
Do you have contracts signed with the nonprofits obligating them to do it?
There are partnerships, yes, with PR VOAD and the Department of Education. Correct.
Partnerships reflected how? In signed legal documents?
I believe so. I will have to verify that with the Department of Education secretary, but I believe so.
Okay. Can I get a copy of the signed legal documents if there are?
As soon as I have that, as soon as I verify that information, I will provide it to you.
Okay. I go back to sort of just wrapping up, and I want to make sure there's nothing I didn't ask that you want to say, so I will definitely give you the final word.
Thank you, sir.
But I go back to just wondering when I hear, I'm collecting a lot of information, right? I saw the mayors saying they think this is a bad idea. I saw 100 non-governmental organizations saying this is a bad idea. The fiscal board, it's a bad idea. Members of Congress, it's a bad idea. Your resident committee. How many people need to say we think it's a bad idea before the government says, you know what? Maybe we ought to open the schools. Miami does it. New York does it. LA does it. All these other places do it, but Puerto Rico refuses to.
First of all, we would have to verify or analyze the motivations behind the opposition, in those different organizations and different political leaders.
Okay, so let's just pause for a moment. Ms. Gonzalez is a Republican. Ms. Nydia Velasquez is a Democrat. Natalie Jaresko of the board, I don't know what her political affiliation is. The Federation of Mayors involves mayors from different parties. They're not just of one party. So I don't know that it's just one party who's saying this is not a good idea.
If we continue that analysis, then we would have to say, okay, it's not an issue of Republicans or Democrats. It's not an issue of what was the other group? Associations and different organizations. Definitely.
Yeah.
We do understand there are several organizations that they do not like the way the government works. They are very critical of the government, and every single thing the government does is wrong. So we believe that many of them are the ones who are opposing the government's view, and we respect that. And this is the main point I want to stress out.
Yes, sir.
There are different points of views, and there are different ways of doing things. Just because they believe that is the correct way to do it, it doesn't mean that my way is not the correct. They would not agree with our way, but it's not to say that our way is wrong or it's not the way to go.
So, but here's the pushback to that. The government has, not my words, sir, but the opinion of many people on the island, failed at a lot of things recently. So there's a profound distrust of government. That's number one. Number two, there's millions and millions and millions of federal dollars available to help you guys do it. And by the way, I have to be honest with you. When I'm getting phone calls from these people, they're not attacking the governor or the government. They're simply saying there's a better way to do it where we can account for every kid who gets a cooked meal. We know where they are, and the school system is the best distribution arm to do that. So I'm not on this end feeling like it's a partisan issue. It's a lot of people saying we think the government is wrong and we want to help them. Literally, sir, I spoke to a woman in New York City this morning whose name I will not disclose, who is Puerto Rican, very well respected and very wealthy. And she said to me, we have 100 non-governmental organizations who just want to help the government get it right. We just want to help them get it right. So that's just a response to your statement. It doesn't feel partisan. Does this feel partisan to you?
Well, you have to remember that there's beyond partisan issues. There is a preference for the government. The governor is running for re-election. However, she has a primary. So we can actually conclude that at least Congress they wrote a letter to the Department of Education. Many of the Congress people that actually wrote that letter were, I would say, from the like you said, from the Democratic Party. They are very well known and very well attached to former resident commissioner Pedro Pierluisi. So if we analyze this in a political issue, I'm not saying that this is actually what's going on, but it actually throws that question: is this politically motivated to go against the government because they chose this way? Because are we not being we are trying to provide, or we're trying to prove, we're trying to show publicly that nonprofits, and we have known this forever, nonprofits work better, and you said it right now. There is a continuous.
Let's just pause for a moment for people watching. Pedro Pierluisi is the former resident commissioner who is now running for governor. He is a member of the current governor's, the interim governor's party. So that's what Hector means when he talks about there may be some political issues here. But Hector, just to push back on that, that may be a reasonable argument if it was only Miss Gonzalez who is supporting Mr. Pierluisi. If she was the only one coming out against this, but she's not.
That's right.
It's all the mayors of the federation. It's the fiscal control board. The fiscal control board isn't rooting for one person. They haven't declared. I'm sure they have their own opinions, but they're not going to declare anything. And so I'm not seeing evidence here that this is somebody trying to go after Miss Vasquez.
We believe we don't want actually to move into that phase, and that is not my position to run there to talk about politics. My position here is to make the nonprofit organizations just to make sure that they're doing their job. I've been working since 2017 with nonprofit organizations and with churches, and they have done an exemplary job. They have done a great job during Maria, during the earthquake, and right now. So there is no. I feel that my job here is to promote nonprofit organizations to do what they are accustomed to do every single day.
But Hector, the nonprofit organizations, and I say this because I've spoken to them, are waiting for the government to get its act together and do the job.
We have 96 nonprofit organizations that are right now active, working and receiving those donations and providing food to the communities and to the people in need.
No, I hear.
There are a lot of nonprofit organizations. I can attest that we have 96 nonprofit organizations that are actually doing the job and working in partnership with the government.
Right, but again, some of the largest nonprofit figureheads that represent many of them have said to me, we're waiting for the government to assume the responsibility.
And I totally, like I told you, I understand their point of view and I understand what they're saying. But I'm telling you, we have not, as you have nonprofit organizations telling you that they are waiting for the government to do their job, we have nonprofit organizations that are actually working in partnership with the government and are doing the job.
Why can't the government do the job?
The government is doing the job through nonprofit organizations.
Okay, so that's the government's choice, to not do it and to rely on the nonprofits.
No, the government's choice is in an evaluation to protect the lives and the health of people, students, workers, their families. We chose nonprofit organizations. We chose to go through the nonprofit organizations because we thought it's the best way. Or we think it's the best way.
Okay. Despite all the folks saying it's not the right way. I hear you. When do you expect to be able to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to change your way?
We would have to see, first of all, we would have to see all the information that we are being gathered by the nonprofit organizations and Puerto Rico VOAD. First of all. Second of all, we have to see how the numbers in infected people actually works to see how we can work with this. So definitely, it is an ongoing evaluation. It is not written in stone. Right now, like I told you, right now, we believe that the way we are going through the nonprofit organizations right now is the best way. But it is an ongoing evaluation.
When you mentioned some of the localities and the states where it didn't work, and I did not hear about the, let me actually look up this, Houston schools feeding kids. When did you look at other entities around the states to see where it was working and try and implement that plan?
Yes, and definitely. And that is exactly what I'm trying to say. There are models that have been working with the schools, and there are models that have been working with nonprofit organizations. In an analysis, we thought, or we think, that going through the nonprofit organizations is a very good way. So it's not a matter of if it's right or wrong. It's a matter of the government thinks this is the best way to go right now.
Hector, you got the last word. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.